Most people struggle to design a home they love because they don't have a clear system for making decisions. So they save 400 photos, they second guess everything, and when they do finally buy something, they move it around for a while before ultimately just regretting it because it was the wrong purchase in the first place. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 steps you can take to create a home that feels grounded, calm, and uniquely yours without spending dozens of hours doom scrolling Pinterest. So I'm sure you've had this experience before. After a long day at work, you get home, but your brain doesn't. It's still running through emails, deadlines, and everything that went wrong throughout the day. But that's a problem because our homes aren't just where we live, they're also where we come down from the day. And so our home is the one place we should be able to relax, be ourselves, and just shut the world out. Because the world is loud. Notifications, all this screen time, and a constant stream of bad news if you don't block it out. And so as a result, we crave something that feels grounded, permanent, and safe. And here's something I've learned over time. If you want to make your home feel more grounded, you can't ignore your furniture. And specifically, I'm talking about furniture that sits low to the ground and feels solid. Pieces made from durable materials with real weight to them. Not because heavier is better as a rule, but because pieces with weight to them change how your body feels. Heavy pieces of furniture send your body a subtle signal that you're supported, you're safe, and you can finally exhale. So light, airy furniture can look great, but it can also feel temporary, like it could shift, wobble, or just float away. And when your life already feels unstable, the last thing you want is for your home to feel that way too. So let me give you a quick example. Think about a sofa that's slim, perched on tall legs with tight cushions. The kind of looks great in a photo, but when you sit down, you realize you're still sitting up and still on. It's like the kind of sofa you'd buy because it looks designer, but you'd never actually choose it when you want to watch a movie. But now compare that with a deep, worn-in sofa like this one. Even before you sit down, you know which one of these two is going to help you unwind. It's the second one. But it's not just because it's more comfortable. It's because it's got a weight and permanence to it that the first sofa just doesn't. Because the first sofa feels temporary, but the second feels like it's holding you. So what does this mean for your living room? Well, it's not saying that you need to run out and buy a massive leather sectional. That's not going to work for most homes. But if you're choosing between a sofa that looks sleek, light, and perched up on its legs, or one that's more heavily anchored to the room, you'll usually feel more relaxed with the second one. And your guests will too. And I say this because it's tempting to think that when you opt for this more formal, nice-looking style of furniture, you're doing it for the benefit of your guests. But that's just not true. Your guests want to be comfortable just like you do. And if you think the people coming over to your house aren't relaxing at home on their couch in the way you relax on yours, you're kidding yourself. So if you really want to impress your guests, create a space where they can truly be themselves. And that starts with choosing furniture that gives both you and them permission to relax. And by the way, if you want to dive even deeper into the ideas in this video, I just put the finishing touches on my grounded home checklist, which walks you through all the most important ideas in this video. And you can print it out or just view it from your phone or computer, whichever you prefer. It's really easy to navigate, and more importantly, it'll help you make the right decisions here. But because it's a bit of a special document, I'm only giving it to the first 500 people who request it. So if you want one of those 500 copies, grab it from the link in the description while it's still available, or just go to 5by9.co. So there's no question that how your furniture makes you feel is important, but it isn't the only thing that matters. Because the last thing you want from your furniture is for it to create more work. Because even if you nailed step 1 and opted for furniture pieces that are comfortable and calming, you really need to avoid the trap of allowing them to become another item on your to-do list. So step 2 is all about the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule is simple. No piece of furniture in your home should require more than 2 minutes of maintenance per week. Now, obviously, 0 minutes of maintenance is ideal, but 2 minutes a week is the cutoff before it starts turning into a chore. So let's walk through a few examples so you know what I'm talking about. The first and most obvious example is a glass coffee table. Because glass coffee tables can look great, but you may change your mind about them once you start living with one. I'm talking about fingerprints, dust, smudges, and water rings, and before you know it, you're constantly wiping that table down. And I know that might sound minor, but if you already have 100 browser tabs open in your head, adding one more thing like that is not going to give you the peace of mind you're looking for. And that's just the beginning, because one step beyond the glass coffee table is acrylic furniture like an acrylic side table or an entire acrylic dining set. And again, I get why people buy these because they look sleek in photos, but they also attract fingerprints like a magnet, they scratch really easily, and over time they start to get cloudy. So instead of modern and elevated, they end up looking cheap and worn, and that degradation happens faster than you'd think. And then there's rugs, and specifically high pile or light colored rugs in high traffic areas of your home. These definitely look cozy at first, but they also hold on to every crumb, show every mark, and start demanding constant vacuuming or spot cleaning. So if you're a busy person, the rug doesn't feel cozy, it feels like yet another weekly assignment. And if you've got kids, forget about it. But the fix here is really simple. Choose materials and finishes that are naturally forgiving. So that means you want to look for materials like leather, which is more forgiving than most people think, especially in darker tones. Or another good option is wood with a matte finish, which hides dust and fingerprints way better than glossy surfaces. Textured stone in a matte finish instead of something more reflective. Or washable low-pile rugs that hide the marks of everyday life. Because if a piece of furniture looks great but needs constant babysitting, it's not high-end. It's high maintenance, and that's never something you want to allow into your home because your home should lower your stress, not add to it. But once you've handled the materials, so you're not spending your free time taking care of furniture that's supposed to take care of you, the next problem a lot of people run into is that your space starts to feel a little lifeless. And it's not because you chose the wrong furniture in step 1 or the wrong materials in step 2. Most of the time, it's because your home is just changing slowly. You see it every day, you stop actively noticing it, and nothing feels new anymore. And that's exactly when people start to panic shop. They drop hundreds or thousands of dollars on random decor trying to fix the vibe of their home, but they don't realize that they don't need more stuff. They just need more life. And plants are the fastest way to make a room feel more alive without adding clutter or committing to a big redesign. The key is using them intentionally, not randomly. So if you've ever bought a plant, set it somewhere, and thought to yourself, why doesn't this look right? Well, I've got a simple framework that I use to make plants work in any room. I call it the Roots framework, and it's not about becoming a plant expert. It's about becoming a spatial thinker with an understanding of plants on top. So let me walk you through it super quickly so you know what I'm talking about. The R in Roots stands for role, because every plant needs a job. It should anchor a corner, soften up some hard lines, divide up a space, or balance out your room in some other way. And if you remove a plant from your room and nothing about the room changes, that's how you know the plant never played a role. The first O in Roots stands for orientation, because plants have to relate to the room. So you should think about how they line up with the edges of your furniture, you should place them according to how the light falls, and of course, make sure that they aren't blocking any pathways. Because when the orientation of your plants is right, they feel like part of the room's architecture, not something you just dropped in at the last minute. The second O in Roots stands for order, because every room needs a hierarchy. So when you're choosing your plants, you want to think about not just how the plants relate to the rest of the room, but also how they relate to each other. Because when every plant is competing for your attention, your room feels busy. But when there's clear order, it feels calm. The T in Roots stands for texture. So don't just think green, but actually think about the plant's texture. So that means shine, hand feel, density, shape, leaf size. You want to consider all of them and then mix them up. So place a plant with bold leaves next to one with finer leaves, and put a highly structured plant next to one that's a bit more loose, because that contrast adds so much depth to your room. And then the S in Roots stands for setting, because the pot or planter a plant lives in really does matter. And the weight and scale of those materials matter too. And in the same way you want your furniture to have that sense of permanence, your plants should feel the same way. Because when the setting is right, your plants feel like they actually belong. And if you run your room through the Roots framework, role, orientation, order, texture, and setting, it starts to make a lot more sense, and you immediately get a much clearer understanding of what's missing, what's redundant, and what needs to move. You stop buying plants randomly and rearranging them every weekend, and instead, you place fewer plants more deliberately, and your home starts to feel alive in a way that actually lasts. But even if you've got beautiful furniture and a bunch of healthy plants, your space still won't feel like home if it's missing you. And this is a trap so many people fall into, especially busy people like you, because you can't spend all your time thinking about your home. And so you end up compensating for your lack of time by buying nice, but still expensive pieces so everything looks polished and put together, but your room still feels kind of empty. But on the flip side, I started to know I was doing something right when I would take a week-long trip, and by day 4 or 5, I just wanted to be back in my own space. And that feeling doesn't come from expensive furniture. It comes from meaning. So the goal of step 4 here is simple. You want to add personality to your space through objects with stories. And the best part is, these story objects don't have to be fancy at all. They just have to be real to you. So that might be something you found at a market, something you picked up on your last trip, something you found on the curb and came to love over time, or something you've had forever that's been with you through all the different seasons of life. These are the items that create the warm, fuzzy feeling we all want from our homes, and they do it better than any expensive piece of decor ever could. But let's get a little more tactical here because I want to make this video as valuable as possible for you. So here are 3 places you can add personality to your home without adding any additional clutter. The first is in your landing zone. So you want to pick one small area near your front door. So that could be a console table, a shelf, or even just a tray on a dresser, and put 2 or 3 of these story objects there. That's enough to create a memorable moment every time you walk in, but it still doesn't take over the room. The second place is on one wall that earns it, not on every wall. So just choose a single spot, which might be in your hallway, above a credenza, or just a spot you pass by multiple times a day, and give it some meaning by adding a framed photo from a trip or a piece of art from an artist you actually care about. The key here is to choose the position deliberately rather than making your place feel busy by scattering little frames all over the place. And then third, on your coffee table, create a memory stack. So a book that reflects your interests, a story object like a souvenir or a meaningful family heirloom, and maybe something like a candle or a small bowl. And before you roast me in the comments, yes, I saw how many people reacted the last time I mentioned putting a candle on top of a book. And I'm not talking about some nasty candle dripping wax all over your prized hardcovers. No, keep it clean, keep it classy, but allow your books to breathe. Because not only will pulling a book off the shelf like this remind you of the things you love, it also helps your guests understand you on a deeper level. Because when they can see what you love to read and get to interact with the objects that are meaningful to you, you form a deeper bond. And by the way, even if you've got a bookshelf with hundreds of books right next to your coffee table, the fact that you chose this book says something about you and the home that you've curated for yourself. So if you do this in these 3 zones, your entryway, a deliberately chosen piece of wall space, and on your coffee table, your home will instantly feel so much more personal. But now, as we come to step 5, this is where a lot of people go wrong. Because once they start improving their home with more grounded furniture, more authentic materials, and more meaningful objects, they get excited. And that excitement manifests in filling up their space. Another chair, another side table, and another piece of art. Because somewhere along the way, we came to believe that a finished room means a full room. But that's not true. In fact, if you walk into a truly refined home, one thing you'll notice immediately is how much they exercise restraint. Because every home that feels great to be in protects empty space. Not every wall has art, not every corner has a chair, and not every surface has something sitting on it. And that emptiness isn't laziness, it's what allows the important pieces to shine. Think of it this way. If every single object in your home is asking for your attention, your brain never gets to rest. But when you leave space, suddenly your sofa feels more grounded, your plants feel more architectural, and those story objects feel more meaningful. Because negative space is what gives everything else power. So instead of asking, what else can I add? Start asking, What can I subtract? And I know you've heard me say that before, but I'll keep saying it because it makes that big of a difference. So leave some walls quiet, leave some corners empty, and let your room exhale. Because the goal isn't to fill your home, it's to feel better inside it. So that's what I've got for you today, and I hope you find it valuable. And by the way, if you're short on time and you want to learn my unique system for designing your dream home without getting overwhelmed or wasting a bunch of money making the wrong decisions, check out this video up here. I made it specifically for you. I'll see you in there.